You already know what time it is. Welcome back into the NFL with AJL, episode 55. Black Friday episode, day after Thanksgiving. First and foremost, thank you for always tuning into the show. You could have been anywhere else in the world. We're live at 8 o'clock on a Friday. Had to recover from the Thanksgiving festivities. Hope y'all had a blessed one with the friends, the family. Hope you stuffed yourself until you couldn't see straight. And I hope you got home safely as well from all the travels. Episode 55, we're locked and loaded on a Friday. Y'all get in the comments, get in the chat as we go ahead and roll right through this show. Make sure to like and share that stream wherever you're watching. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the bell as well so you don't miss any of our posts on YouTube. Make sure to share with someone who loves the NFL, loves the Black Friday game. Not talking about Dolphins Jets. I knew that was going to be one that was pretty easy to, or really easy for the Dolphins to win. Hashtag the NFL with AJL, at the NFL with AJL on all social media platforms. If you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. And that QR code there is the one-stop shop for all social media, all podcast clips and content. We're talking about the Lions' potential panic meter after losing to the Green Bay Packers. 3 Super Bowl dark horse contenders. Shaq Leonard was released by the Indianapolis Colts. The Steelers finally fired Matt Canada. The WHO DAT Corner, Week 12 picks, and much more here on episode 55. And let's jump right into the first topic of the show as the Lions lose to the Packers at home on Thanksgiving. And a quick funny stat to throw out there: since the NFL-AFL merger, when the Lions play on Thanksgiving with a waxing gibbous moon, they were 0-12 walking into yesterday's game, or it might be a waning gibbous, but either way, the chart showed me on Twitter. They were 0-12 walking into yesterday's game, and they are now 0-13 with that certain type of moon phase, and they play on Thanksgiving. And unfortunately, it was just an ugly game for the Detroit Lions as we see Jared Goff now with a second straight game, multiple turnovers. We see the scoop and score that I didn't think was an actual fumble. I thought his arm was moving forward on that one, but nonetheless, good old NFL officiating. And, just back-to-back games where not only Jared Goff wasn't well, but the Detroit Lions are playing bad divisional opponents who, yes, have tested them. And now the Detroit Lions are losing in this game to the Green Bay Packers. Jared Goff with 3 interceptions last week, and a team that had 4 overall turnovers last week. They have 3 more turnovers this week, all off Jared Goff. He had the 3 fumbles, of course, the one, like I just mentioned, that was returned to the house on the scoop and score. But Green Bay did only get 6 total points off of those 3 turnovers. So Detroit does have to be grateful that it didn't get a little more lopsided and ugly as the game went on and the turnovers were unfolding. But should we be worried about the Detroit Lions after this game before we actually start, breaking it down? And I'm definitely going to say somewhat, because you got Jared Goff in the last 3 games with 6 turnovers off of him. You're struggling with bad teams in terms of the Bears, who you come back on in the 2-minute drill. We've seen the Bears do that this year. They're the Bears. They let the Broncos come back on them after really controlling most of the game. Justin Fields' first game back against the Lions had a great game, and they still let it slip away from them. And they really just haven't quite looked the same since they got blown out by the Ravens 38-6 about a month and a half ago. And now we see them in this game with the Packers, making Jordan Love play his best game of the year. The Packers, are not a good football team to me. They're really not. I don't expect them to be in any sort of running for anything. Now, we know they have talent on the team, and I like LaFleur. I'm not necessarily a fan of Jordan Love, but speaking of Love, he came out in this game. He played very well against a Lions defense that has played pretty good so far in this NFL season. And to know that Jordan Love played as well as he did against the Lions here, you just have to give credit to Green Bay and how they were able to prepare and really come in and just take control, of this football game. Jordan Love, though, with the first play of the game, big throw to Christian Watson, and that really just set the tone right out of the gate. Before you know it, the Packers are up 20-6 in the first quarter. And aside really from the final 5 minutes of last week's game for Detroit against the Bears, and then the last couple of minutes in this game against the Green Bay Packers, it's really been a horrific 2-game stretch for not only Jared Goff, but of course the Detroit Lions as well. Goff fumbling 2 times in that first quarter. Of course, we talked about the scoop and score. And even when Jared Goff did hold on to the ball in this game, it seemed like he was pretty off. Passes were wobbly. He wasn't super on target, comfortable, poised behind that offensive line that we're going to get to here in a second. That Jared Goff, is so used to. And they had a good first drive, I'd say, but after that, they just completely fell apart in this game up until the garbage time touchdown and where they came back. And I'm a little aggravated with Dan Campbell and some of his aggressiveness in this game, and just a couple of play calls that I feel like if they go Detroit's way, they're at least tying that football game after they have that 2-minute drill later in the first half. But at halftime, it was Packers 23, Lions 6. Jared Goff at that point, just at halftime, was pressured on 45% of his dropbacks, 9 of 20. That would be the highest he had faced with the Detroit Lions and the third highest of his career. And you see Jerry Jacobs was really picked on by the Packers. Cam Sutton really didn't look like the cornerback one that he's used to playing like and being. And the reason that Detroit brought him in from Pittsburgh is because they needed help in that secondary to really remake this Lions defense that wasn't good from 2022. But the pass rush was absent again. No sacks on Jordan Love, and any quarterback, even some of the not so great ones in the league, you give them time, they're going to be able to dice you up. We saw Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl when he did not have an offensive line. Tampa Bay came in there and absolutely ransacked him. And on the flip side, if you give any quarterback in this league time, they can 100% dice you up. And Jordan Love was able to come in and do that. Linebacking core with Detroit not necessarily covering the best either. They're struggling to cover as the season goes on. So Jordan Love, it was easy pickings for him. He didn't have to really work too hard in this one. Now, I'm still going to give him his credit, but the Lions did set Jordan Love up for success, as funny as that might sound with the take. But Detroit gives up 24 points per game, which is in the bottom third of the NFL. Now, they are 11th best in defensive yards per game. So that is pretty impressive to see Green Bay and Jordan Love again come in with that type of scheme and be able to escape with a Thanksgiving on the road divisional win that this team is absolutely going to feel high off of, as the Detroit Lions, being one of the best elite teams in the NFL, may have to take that elite tag off of them after this game. But back-to-back divisional game, short week, it can kind of get you sometimes. I'm going to give them a little bit of slack here, but Detroit is 23rd in the NFL in sacks on opposing quarterbacks, which means they don't get to the quarterback the best, really. They've only got 23 sacks on the year, so that's 2.3 sacks per game. So you can say every 2 games they're getting to the quarterback about 5 times or so. But Jordan Love was comfortable. That reflected in the fact that there wasn't a lot of pressure on him. There was no sacks that Detroit was actually able to generate. He really made any throw, got whatever he wanted, was picking up blitzes. Midway through the second quarter, Green Bay had 8.6 yards per play. They were absolutely rolling over Detroit, and there was nothing that Detroit really was able to do about it. But after the Packers went up 20-6, there was only 9 points that the Detroit Lions would actually give up from that point forward. The defense gave up 23 points, which is the season average. And before giving up, the final touchdown after the late aggressive fake punt that failed, which we're getting to in just a second, the defense hadn't given up but 16, 17 points there. Now, Jordan Love did miss some throws, like I said earlier in this segment as well. So some of those big plays and even the touchdowns that he did miss, it could have came out more lopsided for Detroit, in terms of a loss for them. But obviously the final score was what it was. Now, again, the scoop and score did not think that was an actual fumble. I kind of thought Detroit got hosed on that, but nonetheless, NFL officiating is going to be what it is. But they come out of halftime, very well in the third quarter, right out of the gate. 2 big plays, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra, and they just come right out, score, hit that 2-point conversion. But Christian Watson is a big story of this game as well. 5 catches, 94 yards, actually a season high in receptions, ironically, for Christian Watson. 5 catches, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Speaking of that Packers defensive line, we know Jared Goff was hurried a lot in this game. 12 quarterback hurries and 3 sacks just from Rashawn Gary. The Packers had 27 pressures on the night, also with another 7 by Kenny Clark. So 19 pressures from 2 players, Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, definitely making it difficult for Jared Goff. And Goff was pressured on 61% of his 44 dropbacks on the evening. But you see, they got the 2-minute drill going. They engineered it towards the end of the game. And even with the 2-point conversion, they could have only been down by 1 and even tied it if they hit that extra point that they missed earlier in the game off the first touchdown. But the play of the game, and I know every Lions fan, every Packers fan, everyone that watched this game, there's one play that sticks out to you, and it's the fake punt that was failed by the Detroit Lions. What the hell are you doing pulling that off on your own 25-yard line, which ends up turning into a touchdown for Green Bay? And it was just 23-14 before that. You go down the field, put up your 8 points, you're down 23-22. And again, if you hit your extra point, Detroit, you're tying this football game. And this is why November and December football really matter. How are you playing situationally? How are you actually correcting some of the mistakes that you made earlier on in the game? Because we see Tua in the last couple of games as well have multiple turnovers against the Raiders and against the Jets. Two interceptions and a fumble against the Jets in today's Black Friday games. Today's Black Friday game. Same thing with Jared Goff in the last couple of games as well, between Sunday and Thursday. When you get into this November and December football, that's really usually how you're going to play in the playoffs, or pretty close to it, kind of some version of that football. If you're turning the ball over 2 and especially 3 times a game, you're going home. You're not going to win those types of games. So that is going to be something for Detroit to clean up here. Goff misses on the 3rd and 5 throw just right before that. So the Lions were probably all out of sorts. They shouldn't have faced that 4th down. He overthrew Amon-Ra St. Brown, if I'm not mistaken, on the player there. Dan Campbell went for it 5 times on 4th down and didn't convert any of them until the game was basically decided with under 3 minutes to play. No one in the league goes for it more on 4th down than the Detroit Lions. But we know that's what Dan Campbell does. That's the aggressive type of football that he likes to come in and play. So giving the flowers to the Green Bay Packers here. Again, still don't think they're a good team, but they do grind out the divisional win on Thanksgiving. And Packers fans are going to be happy about this win. Detroit Lions fans, not so much. It's not an ugly loss. Or excuse me, it is an ugly loss. No loss is pretty, right? But it's not a good loss for the Detroit Lions. Your quarterback was hurried all day. He was pressured all day. Your O-line was not good. Your defensive line got no pressure and really no sacks. So your trenches were dead. Your quarterback play wasn't good. And your defense did good in the second half. But really, when you go up 20-6 and you just let a team get comfortable like Green Bay did, they might just be able to coast for the rest of the football game. Now let's get into some dark horse Super Bowl contenders. I've only got 3. And once I put this on the lineup and then I was looking through some of the dark horses, actual true dark horses of the year that I think could realistically get a chance to go to the Super Bowl, only 3 teams, and they're all from the AFC. First one, probably pretty self-explanatory if you are, or not self-explanatory. You probably saw this coming if you've been listening to the show over the last couple of weeks. The Denver Broncos are dark horse Super Bowl contenders. They got a Super Bowl winning quarterback and head coach combo. They're one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now with a 4-game win streak. I got them going on a 5-game win streak. We're going to get into our picks later in the show. Defense is coming around. The offense is clicking a little better. Russell Wilson is back at that top 10 Russ level. And again, it's different. Not everyone's going to think Russ is back because he's not playing that vintage Russell Wilson Seattle Seahawks hero ball. But Sean Payton understands. He's slowing it down for Russ some, kind of giving him a little bit of that Drew Brees treatment from New Orleans. I don't need you to make every big throw. I might need you to make 2 to 3 big throws a game, but I need you for everything that's 15, 20 yards and in, I need you to be precise. And that's what Russ is doing. Sean Payton knows how to turn things around. It's one of the best turnarounds we've seen in recent memory, especially considering how they were last year, having one of the worst offenses in the NFL, giving up the 70 burger early on in the week. Sean Payton had to have a lot of things happen to this team after he became the coach in order for him to get it right. The Denver Broncos are, let me look up. I should have had the AFC playoff seedings. I actually had it pulled up right before we got on the show. So the Denver Broncos, I believe, are the 10th seed, if I'm not mistaken, right now in the AFC, sitting at that 5-5 record. They're second in the AFC West. Got the Colts ahead of them at 5-5. I don't believe the Colts are a dark horse Super Bowl contender. They're just in the right place at the right time with their record. The Bills are ahead of them at 6-5, second in the AFC East. And then, of course, the seedings go up. Steelers 7, Texans 6, Browns 5, Jags 4, Chiefs 3, Ravens 2, Dolphins 1. And I definitely believe that the Broncos have a chance to go to the Super Bowl. And really, just while we're talking about it, I should have made this part of the segment. You go and look in their schedule. Broncos, Browns, then they play the Texans, the Chargers, the Lions, the Patriots, the Chargers, and then the Raiders. So I think the Chargers, Patriots, and Raiders games are pretty in hand. They'll probably split with the Chargers. I think they'll fall to the Lions. They could lose to the Texans, but I believe that's a W as well, and I believe they'll also win against the Browns. So this is looking like a, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least a 10-11 win football team, 11 wins at best. Sean Payton coming in, going 11-6 and being able to take this team to the playoffs. I'm not going to be shocked. Speaking of the Houston Texans, they're also going to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender for me as well. CJ Stroud, of course, playing out of his mind, going to be the offensive rookie of the year. We're just, waiting for the weeks and months to go on for the awards to get announced. There's playmakers all over this team, from the steal and take Dell. We know there's John Mechie. We know there's Dalton Schultz, Damian Pierce on the defensive side of the ball. They got Jimmy Ward. They got Will Anderson. Some of those guys are banged up as they go into the game this weekend. But the Houston Texans, and with DeMeco Ryans coaching his ass off at a 6-4 record in the AFC, and they are in the playoff seeding right now, second in the AFC South, just trailing the Jaguars, who are a 7-3 football team currently. The Houston Texans are playing great football, and when you go and actually look at their schedule even for the rest of the year, so they've got the Jags, which I think the Jags will win because the Texans handed it to them. They've got the Broncos, which I would take the Broncos to win that game. I'll take the Texans over the Jets. I'll take the Texans over the Titans. I would even take the Texans at home over the Browns. I'll take the Texans over the Titans again, and I'll even take the Texans over the Colts. So that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 more wins right there. This is an 11-6 football team as well. I think they're going to drop their next 2. So they're going to fall to 6-6, and people are going to get a little worried about them. But I think on the back half of the schedule, they will definitely be able to pick it up as the NFL season is shaping out. It is unfolding, and it's going to be beautiful to see if CJ Stroud's actually able to pull this off. The defense only gives up 21 points per game, which is middle of the pack. But the Houston Texans have a damn near elite offense. They know how to move the football down the field. They know how to stay a balanced football team. And as long as they continue to protect CJ Stroud with the likes of Laramie Tunsil and everyone else that's on that offensive line, they continue to surround him with weapons in a Robert Woods, in a Tank Dell, in a Dalton Schultz. He's going to continue to play well. And that's why I said, shout out to DeMeco Ryans. Shout out to the Houston Texans for actually building around their rookie quarterback, who they took second overall, because they know he is the future. And they're going to build around him. And that success is already paying off for CJ Stroud as he's having the best quarterback season in rookie history. Yes, I said it. The best quarterback season in rookie history. And this third dark horse Super Bowl contender maybe been a little bit of a reach, but the Buffalo Bills, as of a few weeks ago, were not a dark horse, or not even a dark horse. They were not a Super Bowl contender to me. But the Buffalo Bills are at the 8th seed, still on the bubble, just outside, on the outside looking in, if the season ended today. And you go and look at the Bills' record as well. They're sitting at that they're sitting at that 6-5 record. I think they'll lose to the Eagles. I think they'll lose to the Chiefs. I think they can maybe even lose to the Cowboys. I think they'll beat the Chargers, beat the Patriots, and I think really they might even lose to the Dolphins, because they took the top off the Dolphins earlier this year. Dolphins will be at home for the last game of the year. I'll take the Dolphins in that one. The Bills could go on a 4-game skid here. They really could. So it's almost like at that point, damn, are they really dark horse Super Bowl contenders? If the Bills fall to 6-9, they're not going to make the playoffs. Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Chargers, Patriots, Dolphins. 5 of those next 6 games are pretty tough. They're going to have their work cut out for them, even with the Chargers being 4-6 right now. In 4 weeks, on December 23rd, literally a month from today, the Chargers will be at home. Depends on how healthy both teams are. But Buffalo still does have a chance to be a dark horse Super Bowl contender, because this schedule is winnable for them. If they play the era of football, or the brand of Buffalo Bills football that everyone in the league knows, and especially we know that they can, the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to get into the playoffs. Now, is Josh Allen taking care of the football? How is Sean McDermott having this team situationally? Of course, we know the offensive coordinator that is now subbed in for Ken Dorsey, which I appreciate the love from y'all on that Ken Dorsey clip. We know that offensive coordinator called a good game against the Jets. It was already noticeably different with Joe Brady. We saw that. It was already very different with him. And knowing that he was able to come in and, take over for the absence or the firing of Ken Dorsey, this team could look very different over the next 6 weeks. And that's why I would like to count them in. The defense still plays well situationally. The defense still has players, even though they have been banged up. I think the Bills could be in the running for Shaq Leonard, which we're going to talk about here shortly on the show, as he was released by the Colts. But the Buffalo Bills can definitely be dark horse Super Bowl contenders, because they still have plenty of talent. I would have liked them to see get another weapon in there. Of course, Dalton Kincaid comes in. They bring in Deontay Hardy from the Saints. But a bona fide receiving weapon. And look, maybe Kincaid can turn into that. I was hoping that maybe DeAndre Hopkins would go and be with the Bills. But even though Stephon Diggs is there, I think Hopkins would have taken that 2 seat to play with a Super Bowl contender and still, probably be a 900 to 1,100 yard receiver on the year. So I've got the Buffalo Bills, the Denver Broncos and the Houston Texans as dark horse Super Bowl contenders in the 2023 NFL season as we're walking into week 12. Well, technically, week 12 is already 4 weeks underway. So, as we're in the middle of week 12, those are my three dark horse Super Bowl contenders. And when I'm looking at the NFC, I mean, the Cowboys, you know, I'm not going to say they're dark horses because they have enough to go and do it. So I'm not going to put them in that conversation. Saints are not a dark horse. Lions, Niners, and Eagles, they're not dark horses. They are some favorites because they're so well in the NFC. Vikings and Seahawks, I just don't believe they've got what it takes to really go. And then everyone on the outside looking in the NFC is all a sub 500 team. Whether you're looking at the Panthers, Cardinals, Bears, Giants, Falcons, Rams, I mean, none of those teams are truly dark horse Super Bowl contenders. And then when you go to the AFC side, I mean, Jets, no. Chargers, I'd like to say so, but they're playing bad this year. Cincy, they just lost Joe Burrow. The Raiders are kind of playing hot the last couple of weeks, but who thinks the Raiders are really going to go in there and do things? But y'all get in the comments and chat. Let me know your dark horse Super Bowl contenders for the 2023 NFL season. Tom Brady had some comments on the modern day NFL. He was on the Stephen A. Smith show, Stephen A.'s podcast. Pretty good show. Check it out if you haven't seen it. And was saying that he thinks there is a lot of mediocrity today in the NFL, citing the fact that the offensive players need to protect themselves. Defensive players shouldn't have to be scrutinized for that, to protect the other player. They need to worry about protecting themselves. The offensive players worry about protecting themselves. He mentioned, or not he mentioned, but he's kind of alluding there to the hip drop tackles and how all the rules are really in favor of the offensive players. So there's a lot of mediocrity. So the level of coaching in today's NFL is not what it used to be. A lot of players can be coddled. Habits, tendencies are able to be allowed, is what Brady was essentially saying. I mean, I'm not going word for word, but from what I took from it, and of course what he said on the show, that was his meaning behind everything. And I get what Brady is saying, but when you drop names like Ray Lewis or Deion Sanders or some of the legends that you played against in a Troy Polamalu, that's not going to necessarily correlate, Brady, because we understand those are one of ones. That's why we drool over an Aaron Donald. That's why we drool over a Patrick Mahomes. That's why we have a lot of grace for a guy like Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey, because they are truly one of one guys. Probably not going to be many more in history that are duplicated like them to the effect of them. So, when he was kind of going back through the legends he's played against and just how they were very tight knit and very disciplined in the way they were coached. Yeah, the golden age of football is arguably past us. Now, we got a lot of great legends in the making today, like I just said, with a Mahomes, with a Donald, with a Devontae Adams, with a Tyreek Hill. We know those guys are going to go down in history. They're going to be first ballot Hall of Famers. They're going to be Hall of Famers. They're going to be guys that we remember in the game. But I also get what Brady's saying as well, because like I just mentioned, the golden era of being able to, hit over the middle, being able to just really hit in general, still being able to celebrate, taunt, whatever the case is, it was tolerated a lot more back then. And that's why when we always hear old players talk about, man, every hit that he would have today would be a penalty. Yeah, probably so. And that's how football was brought up. It's a game of intimidation. It's a game of outwit your opponent. Scare the hell out of the guy on the other side of the line of scrimmage to where you win every battle that you're going up against. And if anyone has a right to talk about the mediocrity today in the NFL, I think it's fair to say that the GOAT has a right to do that. 7 Super Bowls, multiple MVPs. We know what Tom Brady's done for the sport of the NFL. And I've seen some people not taking necessarily kindly to this, and I can understand that. I remember when Brady had his comments a couple years back when I was still on Petty Sports. It was actually when I did 2 years and a month ago, because I did the 24th birthday. My 24th birthday, I did my first ever solo live podcast, and that really kind of molded me here for the NFL with AJL. But anyways, Brady said that, it's very clear why defensive players are defensive players. He kind of mentioned how they were slow, not very coordinated. They weren't good enough to play the offensive side of the ball. And I thought that was crazy for Brady to say that, because Brady, when you look over his 20-year career, I want to say at least 15 of his seasons, if I'm not mistaken, he had a top 10 defense in terms of scoring. He was protected consistently by a great defense. And his defense came up for him in playoff games, in divisional games, in late games in the season, in the Super Bowl. I mean, we remember Tom Brady's last Super Bowl win with New England, 13-3 against the Rams. Rams got exposed. Now, the Patriots offense wasn't great either because Sean McVay's defense in the Super Bowl was good, but Brady's had these comments, a little time, or not a little time over time, and we know that once Brady came to the Bucks, that's who he was. Brady was a guy that, was kind of outspoken. He was out of the Patriot way. He was really just going to let it hang out there. And he was like, I'm Tom effing Brady, and I'm going to say what I want to say. People are going to catch me mic'd up. They're going to hear me talking my smack. You know, I'm going to talk about defensive players that way. I'm going to talk about how the NFL is mediocre in that way. He's already got his Mega Millions contract signed with Fox Sports. He's going to be that lead analyst for the NFL. And I've got all that type of respect because Brady did see the game from a different type of discipline. He did see the game from a different lens because when you're a legend, you're going to have to think differently. You're going to have to, you know, uh, just move differently in the NFL, and he's going to see things in a certain way, and that's why I understand what Brady's saying because I mean, isn't there always more mediocrity, I guess, than not in the NFL? Well, no, I wouldn't say that because I would say there's more good teams than bad teams in the league. But when we're talking about elite, most of the league is not elite compared to the players that are elite, and that's what makes those elite guys so good because they are the cream of the crop. Rising to the top of the league and whatever type of performances they're having. But yeah, Tom Brady's comments on the modern day NFL era, definitely wanted to give my 2 cents on that because we're going to see Brady time over time. We saw it in Tampa Bay. I was very vocal, and we're having more reports on him. And I'm like, look, this is kind of maybe who just Tom Brady's always been. He talks about the defensive players. He talks about the offensive players, and now he's going to be in that lead chair analyst position for the NFL with Fox Sports. And I think Tom Brady's going to do a very, very good job. Going to do a very good job. Shaq Leonard was released surprisingly by the Indianapolis Colts. Very, very shocking move. Shaq Leonard was very, very surprised, did not know how to take it. And shout out to him because the same day that he was released, Shaq Leonard was out there in his part of town in Indianapolis passing out 200 turkeys and sides to families for Thanksgiving. And just a class act guy, right? You have no complaints about the way that Darius, aka Shaq Leonard, is really able to play, man. I mean, seriously, the way that he is able to play, the way that he's played in the past years for Detroit, and just when he was brought in out of the draft, the Colts fans have always loved this guy. I've always had a lot of respect for this guy in the NFL, and especially, at the linebacker position because he's able to cover very well. You go look at his stats. He had a year with 4 interceptions. He had a year with 5 interceptions at the linebacker position. And I feel like when you can find a linebacker in today's NFL that actually is able to cover well and cover to the extent that Shaq Leonard can, you have a real asset on your defense. And, here kind of goes a report here. One day after being told he was benched, linebacker Shaq Leonard received the news that he was being waived by the Colts on Tuesday. He's a 6-year player, 3-time first-team All-Pro, said it was very shocking. He asked for a November meeting. He said, I guess I got a November meeting. You got to be careful what you asked for. And his coaches and his team and everything had been in communications with the Colts and the defense, just talking about how his role was very reduced. And he did have the 2 back surgeries last season, which of course did take him out of the flow of things. He had some nerve issues that were impacting his lower body and really limiting his explosiveness from that Shaq Leonard that we had come to know and love in the NFL. But even when he was recovering, his playing time had been a little inconsistent, but the coaches told him that they were going to work with him through it and kind of go through the motions and revisit it as the season went on. But unfortunately, in his last couple games as a Colt, in their eyes, and even when you look on the tape, he didn't have the most enticing game from the linebacker position, knowing how we've come to expect Shaq Leonard, to play. And even between Monday and Tuesday, he was told on Monday he was benched. Tuesday, he was going to be waived. Shaq himself said, I didn't feel like much had really changed. He left the possibility open to, kind of be flexible in this offense, and the pushback that he was receiving, or rather giving, over his limited role definitely had an impact on what the team was going to do, because we know sometimes teams can say, hey, if you're pushing back in any way, if you have something to say, they might just view that as noise, trying to be a distraction, disrespectful, and they might move on from you. We've seen the Patriots do it. We've seen the Saints do it. And at the end of the day, the NFL is a business. And if you really look into why they did possibly cut Shaq Leonard. Of course, the fifth year guy, EJ Speed, is going to be coming in to take over for him. Middle linebacker Zaire Franklin as well can plug in here for the Colts. But I mean, Shaq Leonard, 2018 second round pick, defensive rookie of the year, very, very clutch playmaking. The Colts call him the Maniac. He was a first team All Pro in 2018, 2020, and 2021. In 70 games with the Colts, he had 32 TFLs, 31 passes defended, 12 picks, 17 forced fumbles, and 7 fumble recoveries. Of course, Jim Osei, amidst his crazy ass sideways comments, did say that he enjoyed the Maniac being there. Of course, Chris Ballard says that he is the ultimate competitor. But here's the big reason why they really moved off Shaq Leonard. It was money. Shaq Leonard had been hurt the last couple of years. He was coming off 2 back surgeries. He was getting into his, sixth year in the league. And because the trade deadline has passed, he has to clear waivers before becoming a free agent, despite being a very seasoned veteran. The remaining balance of his $15.7 million base salary for 2023 is guaranteed, so he will get his money, but the future parameters of the contract are significant. He signed the 5-year, $99 million deal back in 2021. The deal was scheduled to run through 2026, but there were no guarantees beyond this year, of course, when they waive him. So the Colts get out of that money situation with Shaq Leonard. Releasing him saves more than $16 million in salary cap space in 2024, which he would have had a cap hit of $20 million, which is a lot for a linebacker that isn't producing for you in the middle of a time where Shane Steichen is in there at the coach, and they're kind of going through this rebuilding phase. Of course, you see Anthony Richardson emerging, and it's unfortunate how he gets hurt the year as well. More than $50 million was left on Shaq's deal from 2024 to 2026. So it is very unfortunate that Shaq Leonard was cut and let go. I do think he's got a pretty big market, unfortunately. I've got 6 teams here that I think he could land with, but it's unfortunate, but I understand why. The NFL is a business. It's about money. They draft your replacement the year that they draft you, and if you're not performing, getting up there, not even getting up there in age, really, because Shaq Leonard is. I want to make sure I have his age correct. He's only 28, so he's getting up towards 30. And a lot of people in the NFL, even with players, like once you get past that 26, 27 threshold, your body kind of starts to deteriorate. It isn't necessarily the same when you're talking about back surgeries involving nerve issues as well, not playing well in your last couple of outings. It was hard for the Colts to do. It was hard for Shaq Leonard to really absorb that. He didn't expect it to happen because the day before he was told that he was being benched. But again, shout out to him for not letting that perturb him. Hope he had a good Thanksgiving. I know he blessed 200 families with Thanksgivings and side dishes out in Indianapolis. Let's look at Shaq Leonard landing spots. First one I'm going to say is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles definitely need linebacker help. They have been decimated in the linebacker room. The secondary has been a part of this team that has been suspect. And Howie Roseman likes to make big moves. He trades for DeAndre Swift on draft night. He trades for AJ Brown on draft night. I mean, just the players he takes in the draft, the trades he's willing to make for, Kevin Byard over from the Titans. Hopefully he can, continue to play well or at least get better with Philadelphia. And this is just the type of team that would really bring in Shaq Leonard at the 9-1 record, wanting to stay hot at the 9-1 record, wanting to stay at the top of the NFC in the first seed. And why not bring him in on a team with a Nakobe Dean, with a Jalen Carter, with Lord, Jordan Davis? Why would you not want to bring a young linebacker in who is proven to play very well? Again, we just read off his numbers, the way that he's played in the 70 games with Indianapolis. He would be a great fit with the Eagles. They need secondary help. They need linebacker help. They are pushing towards the Super Bowl. I love how they go from the easiest to the toughest schedule, still playing their lights out. It will continue to complement that 26-2 record of Jalen Hurts in his last 28 starts. And the Eagles will be the perfect team to take a swings for Shaq Leonard and really get that coverage aspect out of him greatly. I think that they would be able to really help him fit into that defense there. The Buffalo Bills could also use Shaq Leonard as well. We know that they lost Matt Milano earlier in the year. He was a great linebacker playing in an all-pro season. We know that they lost a corner in was it Jordan Poyer? I know they were going through the ringer. There's so many players that I talk through and go through. I was like, is it Jordan Poyer? Is it Micah Hyde? Let me see, because I want to be sure here. No, Jordan Poyer is still playing. Was it Micah Hyde that they lost? Who did they lose for the season? I can't remember for the life of me. Okay, I think it was, let's see. No, he's playing as well. Hell, I don't know, man. There was some secondary player that they lost for the year, or maybe that they just lost him for, for a couple of games. Bills fans, don't get in the comments and flame me. I know when teams are on here listening to the show, or fans of the team that are listening to the show, they want to flame me for everything that comes out of my mouth. All I know is Matt Milano was hurt, and the Bills could use that to, really get into that dark horse Super Bowl contender mode, like I was talking about, and, bring him in there with a Jordan Poyer, with a Micah Hyde, with a Greg Russo, with all of the guys that are on the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills. And this would just be a big move for them to make as well. It could be some new energy, next to a Von Miller. We even forgot about that. Von Miller's still kicking up, trying to get back, in his stride. So the Bills taking a swing for Shaq Leonard would be great. I think the Dolphins would also be good as well. Their defense looked good today on Black Friday against the New York Jets. But, with Jalen Ramsey coming back a few weeks ago, that really helped them get into the swing of things. And we know that the Dolphins, outside of not being able to beat highly competitive or even competitive teams at all, the Dolphins need to get a defense. They need to get a defense to help them stay in these games, because if the Dolphins, which I didn't put on the dark horse list because a lot of people think they're going to go, I don't think they are. So therefore, I'm not going to say they're a dark horse. But the Dolphins have to get a defense to stay in these games late in the season, in the games where they're going to have to play tough, in the games where the offense is able to put up points. But if the defense is turning right around and having the offense needing to get back out there again, that's going to be tough when it comes, later on in the season, especially in the playoffs. There's divisional games, Super Wild Card weekend, divisional round. Those type of situations are going to matter, and I think Shaq Leonard could really provide value for the Dolphins. Broncos also. Broncos are a defense that's hot right now. Adding Shaq Leonard can make them even hotter, really utilizing his coverage aspect. We know that Justin Simmons is there. We know that Patrick Surtain is there. So to put someone on that front seven that could have that coverage ability like Shaq, and I know all these teams that I'm mentioning, he's not going to jump in and play a ton of the snaps, but even if he came in and played maybe 25 to 35 or 40% of the snaps and just gave some good rotational supplemental value to the teams that I'm mentioning here, I think the Broncos would be a great fit for him, because we know over the last few weeks in their win streak, only the Steelers have a better defense than them in terms of points per game given up. And the 70 burger from, months ago is definitely skewing their their defensive points per game given up. And the Dolphins, or not the Dolphins, the Broncos, the way that they're playing right now, they could really use a Shaq Leonard to just keep that energy going, keep that rebuild and that retooling of this season, and getting back to that good team of the Broncos going. The Detroit Lions as well. The Detroit Lions' defense, they're actually good at stopping the run. So not only could they use Shaq Leonard in that aspect, but again, complementing his coverage aspect, the Detroit Lions could jump in and steal Shaq Leonard off waivers. They could go out there and claim him and, put him next to a Jack Campbell, put him next to an Alex Anzalone, put him behind an Aiden Hutchinson, put him behind a good defensive line that could be better in terms of sacking the quarterback, but they're solid in terms of stopping the run. They were dead last in the NFL, either second to last or dead last. It was either them or the Chargers, and whoever it wasn't at the 31 spot flopped over. Well, but both of those teams were horrible at defending the run last year, and the Chargers are now, or not the Chargers, the Lions are now sixth in the NFL in defending the run, but they could really use that coverage aspect, still be better in terms of defensive points per game, and especially pass yards per game given up defensively as well. And then the last one I'm going to say here is the Minnesota Vikings. I believe that they could very well scoop in and pick up Shaq Leonard. We already see them pick up Josh Dobbs and kind of have momentum of reigniting a player and bringing them into a defensive scheme that can suit them well, because we know that, some of the Vikings defense is old. And if they're sitting at that 6-5 record and think that they can make a playoff push in the NFC and go through the NFL playoffs, and I think Shaq Leonard to the Vikings would be a good pickup. And his market is big. There's more than just these, 6 teams here that could go for him. And what this really feels like is when Bobby Wagner left the Seahawks, when Von Miller left the Broncos, and now with Shaq Leonard leaving the Colts, I think we're going to see an invigoration here of, or a reinvigoration of his career, and we've seen players like a Geno Smith just come out and ball after being doubted and being slept on. And it's not an exact correlation, because Geno, unfortunately, was a bust from the beginning. Shaq has never been that. But knowing that his home team moved on from him, knowing that it was a wave the day after they said he was going to bench him, the week of Thanksgiving. I mean, that's got to be tough. I was shocked as hell when I saw it when it came across my phone. But the Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Broncos, Lions, and Vikings all have a chance to go and capture Shaq Leonard and reignite his NFL career because it's far from over. He is on the good side of 30 years old, meaning he's not 30 for anyone listening to the show. The Steelers finally fire Matt Canada, and it's about damn time. I've got a stat here that I posted on my Instagram story earlier today, and I just had to share it with you guys on the show. These are the records of teams. So, excuse me, there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams that were outgained in every game in the first 10 games of the season since 2000. There's been 7 teams to do it. The 05 Niners, the 09 Bucks, the 08 Chiefs, the 05 Texans, the 01 Panthers, and the 2020 Jets. And, of course, the 2023 Steelers. Was that the 06 Niners? No, the 05 Niners started 2-8 when they were outgained in their first 10 games of the year in 2005. The 2009 Buccaneers started 1-9 when they were outgained in their first 10 games of the season in 2009. The 2008 Chiefs started 1-9 when they were outgained in the first 10 games of the season. The 2005 Texans were 1-9 when they were outgained in the first 10 games of the season. The 01 Panthers also 1-9, and the 2020 Jets were 0-10 when they were outgained in the first 10 games of the season. Would you happen to know that the Pittsburgh Steelers are 6-4 and have been outgained in every game so far? The other teams had 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 combined wins. The other 6 teams that were outgained in the first 10 games of the season. So that's a shout out to Mike Tomlin. That's a shout out to the defensive coordinating. That is a direct correlation of scheming, coaching, having the right superstars at the right positions. And that's going to be a credit to that Mike Tomlin scheme or that Mike Tomlin era and the Mike Tomlin culture that he has put on the defense and overall the Steelers defensive culture that we know is present there. But we know that the quarterbacks and running back coaches have now jumped in to share the role. And, Kenny Pickett, George Pickens, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Darnell Washington, Deontay Johnson, hell, even Jaylen Warren, they are good players, if not great players. Kenny Pickett might leave you out of it. Unfortunately, you're good when you want to be. I don't think you're franchise QB though. Just between me, you, and the wall. But knowing all of those players that were under the horrible mismanagement of Matt Canada, all of the talent there. And I've got an article here that was very, very well written just to break down how ugly it truthfully was for Matt Canada with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let's go ahead and jump right into every miserable offensive stat that was under Matt Canada. On a per drive basis in 2023, the Steelers offense ranks 31st in time of possession. They don't hold the ball long. 31st in place. They don't run a lot of offensive plays. 30th in yards, 29th in points. They're 30th in first downs this season. They're 31st in passing yards. They're 29th in scoring drive percentage, which is the number of drives that ended points in general. From a per game standpoint, here's where the Steelers have ranked over the last 3 seasons in terms of points. 21st in 2021, 26th in 2022, 28th in 2023, a very slow descent towards the bottom of the pack. Pittsburgh is averaging 16.6 points per game this year, so we'll go ahead and give them 17. That's 2 touchdowns with extra points converted and a field goal. That would be worse than the 2019 output with a second-year Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges rotating, a.k.a. Was it Duck Hodges? What was his first name? It was not Duck Hodges. Hold on, I have to research that. What was his first name? Devlin Hodges. Okay. I knew about Mason Rudolph back there, but that would be worse than the 2019 output with Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges rotating at quarterback. They average 18.1 points per game. If 2023's numbers hold, it will be the Steelers' worst output since 1970, when they averaged 15 points per game and finished 5-9 in Chuck Noll's second season. Some other point stats under Matt Canada: the Steelers haven't scored 30 points in a win in 51 games, the longest NFL streak right now. They have never scored 30 points under Matt Canada in 51 games. They haven't scored 30 points. It's been more than a year since the Steelers scored 30 points in any game, regardless of outcome. They haven't scored. Hold on. The Steelers haven't scored 30 points in a win. Oh, the Steelers haven't scored 30 points in a win in 51 games, the longest streak in the NFL. They never achieved it under Matt Canada? Never. It's been more than 1 year since the Steelers scored 30 points in any game, regardless of outcome, win or loss. They last did that on November 20th of last year, 2022. They lost 37-30 to the Bengals. They scored 30 points only twice under Matt Canada, the least by any team in the NFL. They only had 16 games with 21-plus points. That's 30th in the NFL since 2021, only ahead of the New York Jets and the New York Giants. Compare that to those offenses and the talent that you actually have in Pittsburgh. In 2023, the Steelers have 4 games with 10 or fewer points. That is second worst in football. Only the Giants have more with 5. During his tenure, Pittsburgh won only 3 games by more than 1 score. My God. That's tied with the Atlanta Falcons and Giants for the fewest in football. A team stat, not just an offensive one, but those close outcomes weren't exactly because this team was playing in big-time shootouts, and that is a fact. They were not putting up points under Matt Canada. From 2021 to 2023, the Steelers have scored 79 touchdowns. Only the New York Jets have less with 76. In 2023, they've scored 16 touchdowns. Only the Titans, Patriots, and Jets have less. With Matt Canada, the Steelers offensive coordinator, Pittsburgh only threw 42 passing touchdowns. That's tied for 29th. Only the New York Jets and Carolina Panthers were worse, each team throwing 41. Since week 4 of the season, a 7-game span for Pittsburgh, the Steelers have 3 passing touchdowns. That's dead last in the NFL. The Steelers have never had a 400-yard game under Matt Canada. They're the only team to not have a 400-yard game since 2021. From a per-game standpoint, in total yardage year by year, 28th this year. They were 23rd last year. They were 23rd the year before. If the Steelers were to finish 28th in yardage, it would be their second worst finish in the last 33 years since 1990. The only time it was worse was 2019 when, again, Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were back there with the Steelers. No offensive talent. I believe that was the year that Big Ben actually ruined his elbow. 701. Yes, ma'am. Thanks for watching me over at work, babe. Show me off to all the new coworkers. I'll be coming in there training soon. Since week 4 to present day, the Steelers have 1,074 passing yards. That's last in the NFL, a full 70 yards behind the Cleveland Browns, who have started 3 different quarterbacks over that time frame. I had to give it to you guys, Steelers fans, in terms of how bad it actually was under Matt Canada. And I'm sure you know that, but as the show, I wanted to come out and give you these numbers so you understand the type of hell that you're on from in your offensive coordinator. Pittsburgh's red zone ranking by year. 25th this year, 23rd last year, 23rd the year before. Somehow worse this year than the last 2 seasons, which is kind of a question mark because you have since 2021, the Steelers have scored on 13 opening possessions in the NFL. That's tied for 26th. Only 3 of those drives resulted in touchdowns. That's tied for 21st. Somehow kind of a good number here. 26 punts on opening possessions is second to last in football. Only the New York Jets have more at 29. And on 3rd and long, which is 7 yards or more, Pittsburgh's only converted 19.2% of the time under Matt Canada. That's 28th in the NFL. And just one last thing. According to Pro Football Reference's expected points, which is basically a measure of offensive and defensive success, the Steelers have been negative in exactly half of their games, 22 of 44. In 2023, they've been negative in 6 of 10. So all of that out there, they were bad situationally. They were bad at points per game, yards per game, touchdowns, scoring drive percentage, yards in general for a game. I mean, it was very, very, very bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The next offensive coordinator in line is the same guys I've been saying all year for multiple teams that either need to go get a head coach or need to go get an offensive coordinator. Ben Johnson in Detroit, Frank Smith in Miami, and Eric Bieniemy sitting, they're sitting at a 4-8 record. Eric Bieniemy, if he's not going to become the head coach behind Ron Rivera, if Ron Rivera is not moved on from, the Steelers have to give a call. The Steelers have to give a call to one of these guys before they possibly ruin all the offensive talent that they have right now. With the Pickens, with the Najee, with the Deontay Johnson, with the Darnell Wright, with the Pat Freiermuth. Someone to get Kenny Pickett right, because I do believe Kenny Pickett can kind of be Brock Purdy-esque. He just has to be set up for it. The Steelers have to make a call. They have to get someone in there before this offense is wasted. And you don't want to waste an offense when you have a defense and a coaching staff this good behind it. So the Steelers did fire Matt Canada. Steelers fans, get in the comments, in the chat. Let me know what you think about them finally moving on and really who should be your next defensive coordinator, your next offensive coordinator. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a minute since I've actually tapped in and done the WHO DAT Corner. where we give you weekly New Orleans Saints updates here on the NFL with AJL. I've just been doing a lot of the reviews of the Saints games lately. I was like, damn, I haven't done the storylines. I see a lot of great stats and storylines on Twitter. I haven't done any previews. I think the last game preview I did was well over 2 months ago. I just quit previewing the games and just started reviewing the games. So we are tapped in to the WHO DAT Corner. Let's take it off the top. Another horrible post about Dennis Allen, our head coach, who we so desperately need to get rid of, and everyone in the fan base wants to let go of him. Dennis Allen, let me make sure I can find it here. Hold on. Y'all don't leave me now. I thought I had it pulled up. All right, here we go. Dennis Allen did not receive any votes in an anonymous NFL player poll from The Athletic, asking players which current coach besides your own would you want to play for. Former Saints assistant Dan Campbell tied with Andy Reid for the third most behind Mike Tomlin and Mike McDaniel. Anonymous player poll said, who would you want to play for if it wasn't your coach? Dennis Allen got 0 votes. I don't know the other coaches that got 0. Maybe it was Matt Eberflus. Maybe it was Jonathan Gannon. I'm not sure. But if there's any other glaring fact or stat that the Saints need to move on from Dennis Allen outside of his situational play, outside of his coaching record, it's that one right there. The Saints hold the 5th worst coach of all time in terms of winning percentage, 169th out of 174. I will never forget that stat. Dennis Allen has a 33% winning percentage. 33. Dennis Allen has a 33% winning percentage. And nobody in the NFL in terms of players said that they would actually want to play for him. Just let that one sink in, Saints. I'm going to grab a sip of water. Y'all let that one sink in. Did you let that one sink in? Because I have. It's been sunk in for me since last year. And we will continue to sit here and be under Dennis Allen's leadership until the Saints say that it's finally enough. On a little bit of a different note, Drew Brees is officially throwing left-handed now. Thought that was pretty interesting. We know that Drew Brees' right arm was absolutely decimated with the Chargers, and when the Saints made the best free agency move in NFL history for Drew Brees and brought him in, it wasn't the same in a good way because Drew Brees recovered from that. Drew Brees went through multiple years with New Orleans, leading the league in passing yards, winning the Triple Crown, finishing second in MVP voting 4 times, unfortunately, leading the Saints to multiple NFC championship games, leading them to a Super Bowl. Drew Brees did that. And we also saw at the end when Drew Brees got crushed because Cesar Ruiz gives up on the block. And, that really hurt him internally with his lung collapsing, with his rotator cuff being torn. He had an issue in his foot. And we just saw that it was genuinely noodle arm Drew Brees. And now to know that when he goes out and plays with his kids or throws a football in general, he's throwing left-handed. And at first it kind of shocked me, but then I was like, oh, damn, like Drew's right arm is really shot. And it makes me feel bad for in his later days when I was saying, Drew Brees was holding the Saints back. Drew Brees needs to be moved on from. It was because it was clear. It was clear we weren't going to move on from Drew because of what he did for the team. One of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Drew Brees was that guy. The Saints were blessed to have him under center, to know that when he threw the football, we were good. But it was also a point of the Saints were bumping their head up on a ceiling as well, to where they weren't able to have big plays, explosive plays. It was consistent 15, 16, 17-yard drives down the field for touchdowns. And you can't do that all the time. That's not going to give you a great offensive output. The Saints slowly turned into a pop gun offense at that time. So I want to formally apologize to you, Drew. I hope you're enjoying retirement. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving as well. That's crazy to know that you throw left-handed now, but hey, some of the coolest people in the world are left-handed, man, me included. We know about the Michael Vicks. We know about the Tuas, 2 of my, legendary favorite player, and Mike Vick. Tua is one of my favorite players today. I really enjoy the way he plays the game. Always loved him at Alabama, especially when he came on the scene to win the national championship. So welcome to the left-handed club, Drew. It's good to have you in, man. Saints Falcons Week 12 Hate Week preview. And you already know I've been telling y'all for a couple weeks that I will be there Sunday, 10 a.m. in the blue lot at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Pull up on your boy. The NFL with AJL will be there with 9 other of his folks, Saints fans, some Falcons fans, family, friends, former coworkers, everybody. There's going to be 10 of us up there at the game. So let's go ahead and preview this thing a little bit, break it down, and then we're going to make our picks and get out of here on episode 55. So the offense. We know Derek Carr is cleared for concussion protocol. He got hurt a couple weeks ago, took the big lick from Danielle Hunter. Jameis Winston came in, threw a couple touchdowns, also threw a couple picks, and we got the full Jameis Winston experience. So it's good to have Derek Carr back in. Do I like Derek Carr as a quarterback? No, I don't. Do I like Jameis Winston as a quarterback? No, I don't. The Saints are in quarterback hell. They're in quarterback purgatory, and in 53 years, they've used a first-round pick on a quarterback, or 56 years, they've used a first-round pick on a quarterback one time. It needs to be the second time this year coming up in the NFL draft. I was excited about Derek Carr at first, but it's clear that he's an average quarterback. He's not going to take the Saints very far. And unfortunately, in some points, he will lose the game on his arm for us. But let me get off my Derek Carr pedestal a little bit. I guess, is it a pedestal? If I guess it's not, hyping him up. Derek Carr just has to play simple in this game. We're going up against the Falcons defense that is actually some of the best it's been in a long time. And there's not going to be room for mistakes. There's not going to be room for interceptions, strip sacks. The offensive line has to be on it. They've done pretty good over the last month. I think last game was the first game all year that they did not give up a sack on Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr did get popped after he threw that ball. But the Saints offensive line has been holding up decently. Alvin Kamara, he's going to need to be Alvin Kamara, of course, get active in the screen game, run him some routes as well, be able to give the Falcons hell, make the linebackers miss, shoot past the secondary players as well. I believe Alvin Kamara is going to have things held down. There's no Michael Thomas in this game, though. So I believe A.T. Perry, Rashid Shaheed are really going to have to step up, and especially A.T. Perry. We saw A.T. Perry with the throw from Jameis Winston. We also saw A.T. Perry in preseason as well, who performed very well. And I think A.T. Perry can come into this game and supplement Michael Thomas being out, because he was a steal coming out of Wake Forest, taking him later in the draft, way late in the NFL draft. A lot of people had him high on their draft boards. And Rashid Shaheed also, our Tyreek Hill, our guy that gets out in space, the guy that had the big game against the Colts. Him and Derek Carr have to hook up. They have to be on the same page. And I believe Sheed will be able to hold it down for him. Or hold it down himself. It's going to come down to Pete Carmichael against the Falcons defense, who is really mostly good. They have great rankings in all the major categories: points per game, defensive yards per game, rush yards per game, pass yards per game. All the defensive categories that you're able to qualify for in the NFL, the Falcons are in the top 10 to 12 in all categories of the league. And again, this is going to be one of the best Saints, going to be one of the best Saints Falcons defenses, going to be one of the best Falcons defenses that Saints have seen in a very long time, and they're going to have to scheme up well. Pete Carmichael is going to have to call a good game, because Caden Ellis and Jesse Bates and Calais Campbell and Bud Dupree are on the other side of that ball. Grady Jarrett. Those guys are still there, Pete. A couple of them that used to play for the Saints. Oh, yeah, David Onyemata as well. Pete Carmichael's got to call a good game. He really does. Because if he doesn't, I think the Falcons could feast here. Not feast, but I think the Falcons could take some advantages and unfortunately maybe escape with a win if Pete Carmichael comes out and shits the bed in another game as offensive coordinator. Both teams are in quarterback hell. Both teams aren't great offensively. Both teams don't have good head coaches. So what is it really going to come down to? Both teams have good defenses. I would say the Falcons defense is playing better than the Saints defense right now in this season at this point in the year going into week 12 matchup, because the Saints over the last 5 weeks have not been good defensively. And that's something that's going to concern me. Now, thankfully, we are going up against a bad coach in Arthur Smith. Desmond Ritter's coming back in after being benched for Taylor Heineke, and Taylor Heineke is now questionable. I believe we'll be just fine going up against Desmond Ridder. It's not him I'm afraid of. It's the ineptitude of the Saints offense and Pete Carmichael, who is calling said Saints offense. But the defense of New Orleans, how can they adjust with no Marshawn Lattimore? Marshawn Lattimore is out for this game. He's out for at least 4 games. I hope he's not out for the season. If the Saints for some reason get out of playoff contention, I think that they could shut Lattimore down for the season. I'd hate to see that, but not having Marshawn Lattimore in this one hurts bad, because there's a Kyle Pitts, because there's a Drake London, because there's a Bijan Robinson. I mean, they've got weapons. Now, Pitts and London aren't necessarily doing anything this year. That is because of the way that Arthur Smith is leading the team. And I'm grateful for a Paulson Adebo. Very grateful. Very grateful for an Alontae Taylor. Extremely. Y'all heard me say it earlier in the year when I was doing the Saints games previews that this is one of the best offenses that we've seen in a while. One of the, or not one, best offense. This is one of the best defenses the Saints have had in a very long time. Basically, don't patrol 2.0. Isaac Yiadom as well. He's very, very solid. Let me take that back. Over the last month, again, the Saints defense has been concerning. So they've got to play sound on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not afraid of their offense, but any offense can take advantage of a bad defense and make it a rough day. We've seen it. The offense is better than the Falcons. It's got all the pieces to be better realistically, but what are they going to do under the play calling of Pete Carmichael? So I'm going to take this Saints game of the year, and the Saints in an ugly one, 21-20. Didn't have a graphic for this one tonight, but our week 12 NFL picks. I am 105-57 on the year. Let me actually correct that. I would be 108-88 on the year going into these picks because I lost the Lions over the Packers pick, but of course Cowboys win, Niners win, and Dolphins win as well between Thanksgiving and Black Friday. So I am 108-58 on the year. Let me do some quick math and see. So that's 166 games. I am 65% even on the year for my picks. And let's jump into the week 12 picks before we get out of the show. I'm going to take the Colts over the Bucks. Indianapolis is at home, and the Bucks have a lot of key defensive players that are out or questionable. Chris Godwin was limited all week at practice as well. I wanted to take the Bucks originally in this one, but this is why I checked those injury reports. I believe the Colts are at home also, if I'm not mistaken. Let me actually pull up there so I know who's at home and who's away. Yes, the Colts are at home. So I will take the Colts over the Bucks. We had the Patriots at the Giants for the toilet bowl of the year. Two of the worst teams in the NFL, two of the worst offenses in the NFL, two of the worst quarterbacking situations in the NFL, and two of the worst defenses in the NFL as well. But I'll take the Giants. There's plenty of players banged up on both sides of this ball. The Giants are at home. So for that simple fact, I will take them here. I'll take the Steelers over the Bengals as well. Pittsburgh did just fire Matt Canada, and the offense can hopefully boom in this one with all of the pieces that I mentioned earlier on in the Matt Canada segment. There's no Joe Burrow, of course. There's no T. Higgins. There's no Cam Taylor-Britt. Now, Pittsburgh is without Minka or Montavious Adams, so I will take the Steelers over the Bengals in this game. Now, the Bengals are at home, so the Steelers are going to have to go on the road and pull out a win. I'll take the Titans over the Panthers in another matchup of two pretty rough NFL teams here. The Panthers sporting one win all year. Panthers are banged up, and just personally, I think they are the worst team in the league. So I'll take the Titans over the Panthers as the Titans will be at home, and they'll take home a nice road win. Jaguars over the Texans to split the series on the year. We see the Texans earlier in the year blow out the Jaguars by double digits and really just want to run away with it. It was never a close game. Now, Dameon Pierce is questionable. Jimmy Ward and Noah Brown are also out as well, but Zay Jones and Tyson Campbell are out for Jacksonville. I'll take the Jaguars here again to split this series between the two teams. Taking the Saints over the Falcons, like I just said, in an ugly one, 21-20. Derek Carr did clear concussion protocol, but there's no Michael Thomas, no Marshawn Lattimore, no Kendre Miller, and I won't pick against my team in hate week, and I will be there. Rams over the Cardinals. The Cardinals have three players out and a lot of folks questionable actually in this game. Now, the Cardinals give me the feeling that they could sneak in and really win, but the Rams are the slightly better team. But I could see Kyler Murray being in this game, being at home, divisional. I could see Kyler Murray, who, understands Sean McVay. Now, Sean McVay understands the Cardinals and Kyler Murray as well. So that could be a different type of outing, but I will take the Rams here, who are the slightly better team. I'll take the Broncos over the Browns. Marquise Goodwin and Ward are, Marquise Goodwin and Charvarius Ward are, or no, not Charvarius Ward, Jesus. Marquise Goodwin and Denzel Ward are out in they will be on a game win streak, and I will continue to double and triple down on Sean Payton doing his job. And yes, I believe they are playoff bound at this point in the year. I'll take the Eagles over the Bills as the Eagles continue to play this this gauntlet of tough teams might not feel like a gauntlet to some folks. And as long as the Eagles are able to continue winning and doing what they have to do, then people are going to continue to pick them. Now, Philly is without two tight ends in this game. Quez Watkins is injured, is questionable, and they're also without a safety as well. Now, the Bills are missing two secondary players, but Philadelphia is unquestionably the better team, and they continue to grind out those wins. So I'll take Philly comfortably here. I'll take the Chiefs over the Raiders. Now, the Raiders have been playing sneaking competitive, especially with their defense. Surprisingly, when you go look at some of the outings, excuse me, that they've had. But Crosby is questionable along with a few others in this game, and clearly the Chiefs are just the better team. I'll take the Ravens over the Chargers. Now, OBJ and Zay Flowers are questionable along with Marlon Humphrey and Ronnie Stanley as well. The Chargers are mostly healthy, but they're a mess sitting at 4-6, and I think was as hot as the Ravens are with that offense. Brandon Staley's going to be in for another rude awakening, another post-game presser questioning, and maybe, just maybe, the Chargers will cut the turkey post-Thanksgiving in terms of Brandon Staley. And for the final game of the week, I'll take the Vikings over the Bears. Now, Justin Jefferson, he might play, he might not play. We're not sure. We've seen conflicting reports. Justin Jefferson is reportedly frustrated with the way that, his hamstring recovery is going because he wants to be out there. And with the Vikings now dropping a game, they're at 6-5. They really needed to ride that win streak till about maybe 7 or 8 games, but now they're just one game above 500. TJ Hawkinson was limited in practice all week with his ribs, but the Vikings are home as well. So I will take the Vikings in this game. Give me the Vikings, the Ravens, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Broncos, the Rams, the Saints, the Jaguars, the Titans, the Steelers, the Giants, and the Colts in week 12 of the 2023 NFL season, as I have picked every game so far this year and will continue to do it as we get through the Super Bowl, as we get through the playoffs and much more. This has been episode 55 of the NFL with AJL. I appreciate the hell out of everybody jumping into the show tonight. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but you were right here tapped in with me on the show. Please make sure to like and share that stream wherever you're watching. Before we get out of here tonight, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Boom. Hit the bell as well so you never miss a post, no matter whether it's a reel, we're going live, it's a community post, or we're posting the clips like we do every day for the highlights of the show. And as always, the QR code here in the corner of the screen will give you every bit of social media and podcast content. And I promise if you can't find me, you're simply not looking hard enough. At the NFL with AJL, hashtag the NFL with AJL on all social media and podcast platforms. Episode 55 was loaded. It was great. It was a Black Friday episode, day after Thanksgiving, so I appreciate the heck out of everybody taking their time to tune in, whether you're right here with us live or whether you're going to be jumping on YouTube or the podcast platforms in order to hear the remainder of the show. Hope everyone had a blessed Thanksgiving. Hope you were safe with your family and friends. Hope that you got home safely as well, got to see everyone that you planned, got to eat all the food and stuff yourself to your heart's desire. This has been episode 55. I'll see y'all on Tuesday on episode 56. Y'all don't get too crazy out there doing your Black Friday shopping, because whatever you're stressing about, it's not worth the physical altercation or possibly bringing harm someone else's way. I'll see y'all on episode 56 on Tuesday. I love you. I need you, and I will see you.